My name is Matthew Wilson, 34 years old, sitting alone at the Capitol Grill, surrounded by empty chairs. 10 years of 60-hour weeks finally paid off with my senior VP promotion today. The white tablecloth mocks me as I check my phone again. No family, no congratulations, just a text from Mom. You're not exactly a priority right now. The sting burns deeper because I have been paying their mortgage for 3 years. The waiter gives me that pitying look as he refills my water. Before I tell you how my family betrayed me and what I did about it, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit subscribe and give this video a like if you have ever been taken for granted by the people who should support you the most. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood on the west side of Chicago shaped my understanding of family and sacrifice. Our 2-story house on Maple Street was modest but comfortable with faded blue siding and a small backyard where Dad would grill on summer weekends. We were not rich, but we had enough at least until everything changed in 2008. The recession hit our family like a freight train. Dad lost his job at the manufacturing company where he had worked for 20 years. I remember the night he came home, tie loosened, eyes red, and announced that the plant was closing. Mom cried silently at the kitchen table while Kyle, my younger brother by 5 years, remained oblivious playing video games in the basement. Those next months transformed our family. The comfortable cushion of financial security vanished overnight. Dad aged 10 years in 6 months, spending days sending out resumes that disappeared into the void. Mom took on 2 part-time jobs, cashier at the grocery store during the day and cleaning office buildings at night. I watched her hands grow calloused and her smile fade. Meanwhile, I worked every job I could find while maintaining my grades. The local diner hired me as a busboy on weekends. I mowed lawns in summer and shoveled driveways in winter. My senior year of high school, I worked 30 hours weekly at the hardware store while taking advanced placement classes. The hard work paid off when I earned a partial scholarship to the University of Illinois. Not enough to cover everything, but enough to make college possible if I continued working. I majored in finance, pulling all-nighters to maintain my GPA while washing dishes in the dining hall and tutoring underclassmen for extra cash. Kyle took a different path. 2 years after I left for college, he followed his tuition fully paid by my parents, who scraped together every penny they had left. 3 semesters later, he dropped out, claiming college wasn't his thing. He moved back home and cycled through a series of minimum wage jobs, never keeping one longer than a few months. The pattern continued as I graduated with honors and landed an entry-level position at Meridian Financial Partners in downtown Chicago. The starting salary wasn't impressive, but the potential for growth was enormous if I worked hard enough, and I did. 14-hour days, weekends at the office, taking on projects nobody else wanted. While I climbed the corporate ladder one grueling rung at a time, Kyle launched his first business venture, selling custom sneakers online. It failed within 6 months, leaving him $3,000 in debt. Mom and Dad paid it off without hesitation. "He just needs to find his path," Mom would say during our weekly phone calls. "Not everyone knows what they want right away like you did, Matthew." I noticed they never mentioned money during these calls, but I could hear the strain in their voices. When I visited home that Christmas, I saw past due bills on the counter and the thermostat set dangerously low to save on heating costs. Dad had found work eventually, but at half his previous salary, and Mom's jobs barely covered the gap. The first time I helped them was almost accidental. I noticed the mortgage statement on the kitchen counter showing they were 60 days behind. Without mentioning it, I wrote a check and slipped it into an envelope with a note saying, "Let me handle this one. Love you both." I drove to the bank on my way out of town and made the payment directly. Mom called me crying the next day. "We would have lost the house," she admitted. I did not know how to ask for help. "You never have to ask," I told her. "That is what family does." What began as a one-time bailout evolved into a regular arrangement. Every month I transferred money to cover their mortgage payment. I told myself it was temporary, just until Dad found a better job or Mom could cut back her hours. 3 years later, I was still paying, having spent over $70,000 keeping their house afloat. Meanwhile, Kyle launched 4 more failed businesses: a dog walking service, a social media management company, a food delivery app, and most recently, a YouTube channel reviewing energy drinks that never broke 100 subscribers. Each failure followed the same pattern: initial excitement, promising early results, then a spectacular crash, followed by Kyle living in the basement playing video games for weeks. After each failure, I would get a call from Mom. "Kyle is really struggling right now," she would say. "He just needs a little help getting back on his feet." And I would help paying off credit card debt, covering car repairs, once even funding startup costs for his next doomed venture. I did it because they were family, and because each time their gratitude seemed genuine. Dad would clap me on the shoulder with tears in his eyes. Mom would cook my favorite meal. Kyle would promise this time would be different. The resentment built slowly, like water filling a bucket, one drop at a time. I noticed they never asked about my work or my life in the city. When I mentioned a promotion or bonus, they would nod politely before steering the conversation back to Kyle's latest idea or struggle. At family gatherings, Aunt Cynthia was the only one who ever acknowledged my accomplishments. "They take you for granted because you make it look easy," she told me once, her voice low, as we washed dishes after Thanksgiving dinner. "But I see how hard you work, Matthew." Despite everything, I loved my family. I told myself that helping them was my choice, that the stability I provided was worth the occasional pang of resentment. When Richard Harrington, the executive vice president, called me into his office to announce my promotion to senior vice president, my first thought was to share the news with my family. "This calls for a celebration," Richard said, shaking my hand firmly. "You have earned this, Wilson. Nobody deserves it more." That night I called my parents and invited them to a celebration dinner. "Bring Kyle too," I said, "and invite Aunt Cynthia and Jessica if they are free. This is a big deal for me, and I want everyone there." Mom sounded genuinely excited. "Of course we will be there, sweetie. Oh, this is wonderful news. We are so proud of you." For the first time in years, I felt like my achievements mattered to them. Maybe this promotion, this tangible proof of my success, would finally earn me the recognition I had been seeking from my family all along. The promotion had been a long time coming. For a decade, I had been the first one in the office and the last to leave. I volunteered for the projects nobody wanted, worked holidays when needed, and built relationships with clients other associates found difficult. My portfolio consistently outperformed expectations even during market downturns. The morning of the announcement, Richard called the entire department into the conference room. 40 people crowded around the long mahogany table, some standing against the walls. I sat near the middle, reviewing quarterly projections while we waited. "Before we get into the numbers," Richard began, straightening his tie, "I have an important announcement. As you know, Janet Peterson is retiring next month after 20 years with the firm. Her position as senior vice president has been highly coveted, and the selection committee has spent considerable time evaluating potential candidates." My heart hammered against my ribs as Richard paused for effect. I kept my expression neutral, eyes focused on the notepad before me. "After careful consideration, I am pleased to announce that Matthew Wilson will be our next Senior Vice President of Investment Strategy, effective immediately." The room erupted in applause. David Chen, my closest colleague, clapped me on the back. "Nobody deserves it more," he whispered, as I stood to shake Richard's hand. "Thank you for the opportunity," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I will not let you down." The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Afterward, colleagues stopped by my office to offer congratulations. Some seemed genuinely happy for me. Others wore the tight smiles of concealed disappointment. By lunch, my email inbox overflowed with congratulatory messages from colleagues and clients alike. That afternoon, between meetings, I called the Capitol Grill to arrange the celebration dinner. The hostess recognized my name. I had brought important clients there many times. "We would be delighted to host your celebration, Mr. Wilson," she said. "Would you prefer the private dining room?" "Yes, please," I replied. "For 6 people, 7:30 tomorrow evening." I spent 15 minutes selecting wines and planning a special menu. Money was no object. This was my moment to celebrate with the people who mattered most. The restaurant promised champagne on arrival and a custom dessert with congratulations written in chocolate. After work, I drove to Brooks Brothers and purchased a new charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, and silk tie in deep burgundy. The salesman suggested cufflinks, simple silver squares with a subtle pattern. "For special occasions," he said, and I nodded, adding them to my purchase. That evening, I called each family member personally to confirm the details. Mom, just checking that you and Dad are still good for tomorrow night, 7:30 at the Capitol Grill. Of course, sweetie, Mom replied. We would not miss it for the world. Dad is even getting his suit dry cleaned. I called Kyle next. Hey bro, big shot now, huh? He said after I reminded him about dinner. Yeah, I will be there. Can I bring Stacy? Who is Stacy? I asked. This girl I have been seeing. She is really cool, works at the smoothie place. Not this time, I said. Let us keep it family for now. My cousin Jessica confirmed she would drive in from the suburbs. I cannot wait to celebrate with you, Matt. This is such awesome news. Aunt Cynthia was the last call. I am so proud of you, she said, her voice warm. Your grandfather would have been too. The morning of the dinner I woke early, too excited to sleep. I sent a group text to everyone. Looking forward to seeing you all tonight at 7:30. The restaurant has a dress code, so business casual at minimum. Love you all. Mom replied immediately with a heart emoji. Dad sent a thumbs up. Kyle wrote, got it, fancy pants. Jessica and Aunt Cynthia both confirmed. The day crawled by, each minute stretching like an hour. I left work early to go home and change carefully, knotting my new tie and sliding the cufflinks into place. Standing before the mirror, I hardly recognized myself, no longer the busboy working for minimum wage or the college student washing dishes to make tuition payments. I had become someone my younger self would admire. I arrived at the restaurant 30 minutes early to make sure everything was perfect. The private dining room looked spectacular. White tablecloth, fine china, crystal glasses catching the light from the chandelier overhead, a bottle of champagne chilled in an ice bucket, and a small card reading, Congratulations. Matthew sat at the head of the table. Your guests can be seated as soon as they arrive, the hostess assured me. Everything is ready. I sat at the head of the table, adjusting and readjusting the silverware, checking my watch every few minutes. 7:30 came and went. I sent another group text. I am here in the private room. Let the hostess know you are with the Wilson party when you arrive. By 7:45, no one had arrived. I ordered a glass of scotch to calm my nerves. They are probably just running late, I told the server. Traffic can be terrible this time of evening. At 8, I called Mom. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried Dad, then Kyle, then Jessica. No answers. Only Aunt Cynthia picked up, sounding distressed. Matthew, I am so sorry, she said. I have been trying to call you. My car broke down on the highway. I am waiting for a tow truck now. Do not worry about it, I assured her. These things happen. I hope you get home safely. By 8:30, I had called everyone multiple times. The server approached cautiously. Sir, would you like to order dinner? The kitchen will be closing the main service soon. Just a few more minutes, I said, forcing a smile. I am sure they will be here any moment. 9 o'clock found me still alone, nursing my third scotch. The server, Thomas, according to his name tag, had stopped asking when my guests would arrive. The pitying glances from the staff had evolved into something worse, a collective embarrassment on my behalf. The private dining room that had seemed so elegant 2 hours earlier now felt like a mausoleum to my naivete. I checked my phone for the 20th time. Still no calls, no texts. I opened the group chat and typed, Is everyone okay? Please let me know if something happened. The message showed as delivered but remained unread by most. Mom had read it, though. The read receipt glared back at me. As I stared at the screen, 3 dots appeared indicating she was typing. My heart leapt, finally an explanation. When her message appeared, I had to read it twice to believe what I was seeing. You're not exactly a priority right now. Kyle needs us tonight. We'll explain later. The words hit like a physical blow. Not exactly a priority. After everything I had done, the mortgage payments, the bailouts, the constant financial support, I was not a priority on the night meant to celebrate the biggest achievement of my career. I sat back, scotch forgotten, as a cold numbness spread through my chest. Thomas approached again, his expression carefully neutral. Sir, I hate to rush you, but the kitchen needs to know if you will be dining with us tonight. I looked up at him, suddenly aware of how pathetic I must appear. A man in an expensive suit, sitting alone at a table for 6, abandoned by his own family. They are not coming, I said, my voice hollow. I will have dinner alone. Thomas nodded, professional mask firmly in place. Very good, sir. Would you like to see the menu, or shall I bring you our chef's selection? The chef's selection is fine. I could not bear to look at the celebratory menu I had planned. While waiting for my food, I mindlessly scrolled through social media, a habit born of discomfort. That is when I saw it, a post from my cousin Jessica, just 30 minutes old. Family night out, for the real success story. So proud of Kyle number, family celebration, number proud cousin. The photo showed my entire family, mom, dad, Kyle, Jessica, crowded around a table at Brewster's Bar and Grill, a casual place known for its burgers and beer. Kyle stood in the center holding up car keys with a plastic jet ski keychain, grinning like he had just won the lottery. I zoomed in on the image, unable to process what I was seeing. Mom wore the dress she had bought for my college graduation. Dad had indeed worn his suit, the one I had helped him pick out for job interviews years ago. They were beaming, glasses raised in celebration. I scrolled to the comments section. Mom had written, "So proud of our boy. First major purchase all on his own." Dad, "The Wilson men know quality when they see it." Kyle had responded, "Could not have done it without your support all these years." A jet ski. My family had skipped my promotion dinner to celebrate my brother buying a jet ski. The absurdity might have been comical if it did not hurt so much. I thought of the $74,500 I had paid toward their mortgage over the past 3 years. I thought of the credit card debt I had helped Kyle clear, the car repairs I had funded, the countless times I had stepped in to solve their financial problems. All for them to skip the most important night of my career, to celebrate a recreational vehicle that would probably sit unused in their garage by next summer. Thomas returned with a plate of perfectly seared scallops. "Your appetizer, sir." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. As he placed the food before me, another server arrived with a bottle of champagne. "Compliments of Mr. Harrington," she said, presenting the bottle. "He called to offer his congratulations on your promotion." Richard had remembered. My boss had taken the time to call the restaurant and send champagne while my own family could not be bothered to show up. "Would you like me to open it now?" she asked. "Please," I replied. At least I would toast myself. Dinner arrived, a 36-ounce porterhouse steak, truffle, mashed potatoes, and asparagus with hollandaise. Food I would normally savor but now could barely taste. I forced myself to eat mechanically, cutting the steak into precise squares, while refreshing Jessica's Instagram post every few minutes, watching the likes accumulate. Aunt Cynthia had commented, "Where is Matthew tonight? Thought you were all celebrating his promotion." Jessica's reply, "This was more important. Matthew is just doing office stuff. Kyle bought a jet ski. More important, office stuff." The words echoed in my head as I signaled for the check. Thomas appeared with the leather folder, his expression sympathetic. "I hope everything was to your satisfaction, sir, despite the circumstances." I glanced at the total $1,940.16, including the champagne and wine that no one had been there to drink. Without hesitation, I handed over my credit card and added a $500 tip. "The service was excellent," I said. "Thank you for your kindness tonight." As I walked to my car, a strange calm settled over me. This was not a new betrayal, I realized. It was merely the most blatant in a long pattern of being taken for granted. For years I had told myself that family supports each other unconditionally, that my financial assistance was an investment in our relationship. Tonight had shown me the true return on that investment. The drive home passed in a blur of streetlights and silent fury. By the time I pulled into the parking garage of my high-rise, a decision had crystallized in my mind. Something had to change, and if my family could not recognize my worth, I would have to show them. My apartment felt especially empty that night. The 22nd floor unit with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan had always been my sanctuary, a place earned through hard work and sacrifice. Now, as I loosened my tie and kicked off my shoes, I realized how much of that sacrifice had been for people who did not appreciate it. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at my desk, opening my laptop. The banking app welcomed me with my account summary, healthy but not as robust as it should have been for someone at my income level. I navigated to the transaction history and began scrolling through years of transfers. Wilson. Family mortgage appeared like clockwork on the 15th of every month for 3 years, $2,685 each time. I exported the data to a spreadsheet and tallied the total $74,500. What could I have done with that money? The down payment on a lakefront condo I had been eyeing. A year of worry-free travel. Investment capital that could have grown substantially. Instead, it had gone to maintaining my parents' 4-bedroom house, so Kyle could live in the basement, rent-free between his failed ventures. I opened another folder on my desktop labeled Family Expenses and reviewed the additional support I had provided. $8,000 for Kyle's credit card debt after the sneaker business failed. $3,200 for Dad's emergency dental work. $4,500 for Mom's car repairs. The list went on, totaling over $100,000 in the past 5 years. What had I received in return? Missed birthdays, conversations that inevitably turned to Kyle's latest schemes, and now the ultimate insult being abandoned on what should have been one of the proudest nights of my life. I thought about the decisions that had led me here. After college, I had chosen a modest apartment instead of the luxury units my salary could have afforded, saving the difference to help family. I drove a practical sedan rather than the sports car I desired. Vacations were rare and budget-conscious, always with the knowledge that my family might need financial assistance at any moment. Meanwhile, Kyle bought whatever caught his fancy. The 70-inch television in his basement room, the gaming computer worth more than 3 months of mortgage payments, designer clothes he wore to job interviews he inevitably bombed, and now a jet ski probably purchased on credit with no thought to the maintenance costs or insurance. I pulled up my photo gallery and found pictures from last Christmas. There was Kyle opening the iPad I had bought him, while I unwrapped a coffee mug that still had the clearance sticker partially peeled off. There was Mom serving Kyle his favorite prime rib while I received the end piece she knew I disliked. There was Dad engaged in animated conversation with Kyle about sports teams, while I sat silently, having received perfunctory thanks for the checks that kept their lives afloat. The pattern was undeniable. I had become an ATM to them, useful but unworthy of celebration or genuine gratitude, a resource to be tapped when needed but otherwise ignored. Something inside me snapped, not in a violent, chaotic way, but like a rope that has held too much weight for too long, a clean break that felt almost like relief. I navigated back to my banking app and found the automatic payment scheduled for the 15th, 3 days away. My finger hovered over the Cancel Recurring Payment button for just a moment before I clicked. A confirmation message appeared. "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment?" I clicked. Yes, without hesitation. Next, I opened my contact list and created a new group excluding my family members. Into it, I added colleagues, friends from college, neighbors in my building, people who had shown me genuine appreciation and respect. I wrote a message. Promotion celebration this Saturday, 8 p.m. at Sullivan Steakhouse. Hope you can join. Responses came quickly. Congratulations and confirmations of attendance. I smiled, realizing I had allowed my family's indifference to blind me to the people who actually valued me. But I was not done yet. My family needed to understand that their actions had consequences. I opened a Word document and typed a simple note. After 3 years and $74, 500-inch mortgage payments, I have decided that I am not exactly a priority either. The automatic payment has been canceled. Let him pay it. I printed the note, folded it neatly, and placed it in an envelope with a copy of the spreadsheet showing every payment I had made. Then I took the keys to my practical sedan and drove through the quiet midnight streets to my parents' house in the western suburbs. The house was dark when I arrived, save for the blue flicker of a television in the basement. Kyle, no doubt still awake, playing video games on the system I had bought him last birthday. I approached the front door, silently taped the envelope securely to the center, and returned to my car without looking back. As I pulled away, I felt no anger, no sadness, only the lightness of shackles finally removed. I drove home with the windows down, the cool night air washing over me, and for the first time in years I breathed freely. Back in my apartment, I turned off my phone completely, something I had not done since college. Whatever storm would follow could wait until morning. Tonight I would sleep unburdened by obligation. As I drifted off, I realized that the most valuable thing my family had given me was this moment of clarity, the understanding that self-respect is not selfish, and that sometimes the healthiest love is the kind that establishes boundaries. I slept better that night than I had in years, waking naturally as sunlight streamed through my blinds. For a full minute I lay there enjoying the peace before remembering the events of the previous evening. With a deep breath, I reached for my phone and powered it on. The notifications exploded like a digital volcano: 81 missed calls, 117 text messages, 23 voicemails, emails, social media alerts, the digital equivalent of a 5-alarm fire. I scrolled through the missed calls first. Mom, 32 calls starting at 6:15 in the morning. Dad, 14 calls. Kyle, 16 calls. Jessica, 7 calls. Even Aunt Cynthia had called twice. The remaining calls came from unknown numbers, likely other relatives recruited for the guilt campaign. The text messages followed a predictable pattern. The first few from Mom were angry. "How dare you leave such a note? After everything we have done for you, you are being incredibly selfish right now. Call me immediately, young man." As the morning progressed, her tone shifted to panicked. "Matthew, please call us, this is serious. The bank called about the mortgage. What have you done? We cannot afford this payment on such short notice." By 9 a.m., she had reached desperate. "Please, Matthew, we are sorry about missing dinner. We did not realize how important it was to you. Kyle is devastated that he upset you." Dad's messages were fewer but followed a similar arc from indignation to concern. Kyle's texts were defensive at first. "Dude, way to overreact. It was just dinner. Not cool, bro, parents are freaking out." Later, his tone changed. "Okay, I get you're mad, but this is extreme. Seriously, Matt, they might lose the house. I can't afford this, man, you know that." I listened to just one voicemail, the latest from Mom, her voice thick with tears. "Matthew, please. We know we made a mistake. We should have been there last night. We are so proud of your promotion. Please call us back. The bank says the payment is past due, and with the late fees, we just do not have it right now. I do not know what we are going to do." I set the phone down and went through my morning routine: shower, shave, breakfast. The constant buzzing of incoming messages continued, but I felt strangely detached from the crisis I had created. By the time I left for work, 3 more voicemails had arrived, but I did not listen to them. At the office, I found a congratulatory arrangement of balloons at my desk and a card signed by the entire department. Richard stopped by mid-morning. "Sorry I could not make it to your dinner last night," he said. "How was the celebration?" "Educational," I replied. "Thank you for the champagne." It was a thoughtful gesture. He studied my face for a moment. "Everything all right, Wilson?" "Never better," I said, and meant it. I am exactly where I should be. At lunch, I met David Chen at our usual spot, a deli around the corner from the office. As we settled at a corner table with our sandwiches, he leaned forward. "You seem different today," he observed. "More, I do not know. Present." I considered telling him everything but settled for the abbreviated version. "My family stood me up last night to celebrate my brother buying a jet ski." David winced. "That is rough. What did you do?" "I stopped enabling them," I said simply. "Long overdue, honestly." He nodded slowly. "Good for you. Family should build you up, not tear you down." 3 years of mortgage payments," I said. "That is what I have been providing while they treated me like an afterthought." "Jesus," David muttered. "No wonder you always shot down our invitations to weekend trips." The realization hit me how many experiences I had sacrificed to maintain my role as family provider. Returning to the office, I found the receptionist looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Wilson, your family is here. They are waiting in the lobby." I froze momentarily before nodding. "Thank you, Rachel. Please call security and have them ready just in case." In the lobby, the tableau was exactly as I had expected. Mom pacing nervously, Dad sitting with his head in his hands, Kyle standing awkwardly by the potted plant, looking anywhere but at me. Mom spotted me first. Matthew, thank God. You have not been answering your phone. I am at work, I said, calmly stopping several feet away from them. This is inappropriate. Inappropriate. She nearly shrieked the word. You left a note saying you are cutting us off. After years of being part of this family, you just decide to abandon us. Several heads turned in our direction. The security guard by the elevator straightened, watching carefully. I think you have that backward, I replied, keeping my voice even. I was abandoned last night while you all celebrated Kyle's jet ski purchase. It was not just about the jet ski, Dad interjected, standing up. Kyle got a job offer too. We were celebrating both things. I looked at Kyle. Is that true? He shifted uncomfortably. Well, sort of. The guy who sold me the jet ski said they need weekend help at the marina. Nothing definite yet. Of course, I said, unsurprised. And the jet ski, how did you pay for it? Financing, Kyle mumbled. Low monthly payments. Which you cannot actually afford, I concluded. So you expect me to keep paying the mortgage while you take on new debt for toys? That is not fair, Mom, said her voice rising again. We are family. We support each other. Support goes both ways, Mom. When was the last time any of you supported me? When was the last time my accomplishments were celebrated like Kyle's? We have always been proud of you, Dad, said weakly. Proud enough to skip the most important night of my career. Proud enough to text me that I am not exactly a priority. Mom had the decency to look ashamed at that. I should not have said that. I was just stressed because Kyle was so excited about his purchase and I did not matter. I finished for her. That has been the pattern for years. I provide financial support, and in return I get taken for granted. Kyle stepped forward. Look, Matt, we messed up, okay? But cutting off the mortgage payment without warning, Mom and Dad could lose their house. The house you live in rent-free, I pointed out. The house I have been paying for while you bought a jet ski. The security guard approached. Is everything all right here, Mr. Wilson? No, I said clearly. My family was just leaving. Matthew, please. Mom reached for my arm, but I stepped back. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. If you want to have a real conversation about this, we can do it after work hours in a neutral location, not here causing a scene at my workplace. The bank called this morning, Dad said desperately. The payment is already late with fees. If we do not make it by Friday, sell the jet ski, I suggested. Or better yet, have Kyle contribute the payments he can clearly afford for his new toy. Kyle's face flushed red. You are being a real jerk right now. And you have been a parasite for years, I replied coldly. Security will escort you out now. Do not come to my workplace again. I nodded to the guard who stepped forward. Please come with me, folks. As they were led toward the exit, Mom turned back. This is not who we raised you to be. Matthew family does not abandon family. I agree, I called after her. Remember that the next time you receive an invitation to celebrate my achievements. Back in my office, I closed the door and took several deep breaths. My phone buzzed with a message from Aunt Cynthia. I heard what happened. They have been taking advantage of you for years. Stand your ground. Love you, nephew. Throughout the afternoon, the calls continued, now interspersed with messages from extended family members. Some expressed outrage at my abandonment of my parents. Others, who perhaps had witnessed the dynamic over the years, were more measured in their responses. At 5:30, my phone rang with a call from the family's mortgage lender. They had listed me as a contact. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, a call from their realtor likely discussing potential foreclosure options. I blocked the number. By the time I left work, my resolve had only strengthened. The initial guilt had been replaced by a growing sense of validation. David caught me at the elevator. Some of us are going for drinks. You should join us, celebrate that promotion properly. I smiled, a genuine smile that felt foreign on my face. I would like that. For the first time in years, I had no family emergency to rush home, for no financial fire to extinguish. I was free to be just Matthew Wilson, Senior Vice President, celebrating with people who actually showed up. After a week of limited communication, responding only to confirm I would meet them, but ignoring the dozens of emotional messages, I agreed to see my family at a coffee shop halfway between my apartment and their house. I arrived early, selecting a table in the corner that offered some privacy without being completely isolated. I ordered a black coffee and waited reviewing mental notes of what needed to be said. They arrived as a unit, the solidarity of their front physically manifested as they entered the cafe together. Mom looked like she had not slept in days, her normally carefully applied makeup, absent hair, pulled back in a hasty ponytail. Dad appeared older somehow, the lines around his eyes deeper than I remembered. Kyle shuffled behind them, hands in pockets, eyes downcast. Matthew, Mom said as they reached the table, her voice straining for normalcy. "Thank you for meeting us." I nodded, not standing to hug them as I normally would. "Please sit down." They arranged themselves across from me, a visual representation of the division between us. A barista approached, but Dad waved her away. This was not a social visit. "You have put us in an impossible situation," Mom began without preamble. "The bank called again yesterday. If we do not make a payment by next week, they will begin foreclosure proceedings." I took a sip of my coffee, letting the bitter liquid fortify me. "That sounds stressful," I said finally, similar to how I felt sitting alone at my promotion dinner. "We have apologized for that," Dad interjected. "It was thoughtless and wrong. But this response is disproportionate, son." "Is it?" I set my cup down carefully. "Let me ask you something. How much do you think I have contributed to your mortgage over the past 3 years? They exchanged uncomfortable glances. "I do not know exactly," Mom hedged, "but we have always been grateful for your help." $74,500, I said flatly. "Nearly $25,000 per year. That is in addition to the other financial support, Kyle's debts, car repairs, emergency expenses. All told over $100,000 in 5 years. The number hung in the air between us. Kyle's eyes widened slightly. Clearly, he had not realized the extent of my support. "We never asked for that much," Dad said weakly. "You never had to ask. I offered because that is what family does. But family also shows up. Family celebrates achievements. Family makes you a priority." Mom leaned forward, eyes pleading. "We made one mistake." "No," I cut her off firmly. "You have been making the same mistake for years. You have consistently prioritized Kyle's whims over my needs. You have taken my financial support for granted while celebrating his every minor accomplishment. You have created a dynamic where I give, and in return I get forgotten on the most important night of my career. That is not fair." Kyle spoke up, his voice defensive. "They have always been proud of you. Proud enough to skip my dinner but show up for your jet ski purchase," I countered. "Which, by the way, how is that working out? Have you even used it yet?" Kyle flushed. "That is none of your business. Actually, given that I have been subsidizing your lifestyle for years, I think it is very much my business." "Boys, please," Dad intervened. "This is not productive. Matthew, we understand you are hurt. We messed up badly. But cutting us off without warning has put us in danger of losing our home." "A home I have been paying for," I reminded him. "Where is your emergency fund? Where are your savings? After 3 years of not having to worry about the largest expense in your budget, surely you have put something aside." The uncomfortable silence told me everything I needed to know. "You have nothing saved," I realized aloud, "because you never planned to take responsibility for your own mortgage again. You assumed I would keep paying indefinitely." "That is not true," Mom protested, but her eyes darted away from mine. "Then where did the money go?" I pressed. "Dad is working again. Mom still has her job at the school. Kyle has been living at home rent-free. Without a mortgage payment, you should have been able to save thousands each month." Kyle shifted in his seat. "Mom and Dad helped me with some of my businesses. And some personal expenses," Dad admitted reluctantly. "The basement renovation for Kyle's room, the trip to Colorado last winter." "The trip I was not invited to," I noted, "because I was too busy with work," according to the group text. Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We never meant to take advantage, Matthew. It just happened over time. You were doing so well and Kyle needed more support. And now, look where we are," I said, gesturing between us. "You are on the verge of losing your house because you cannot make one mortgage payment after years of financial freedom that I provided. What about the jet ski? I asked Kyle directly. How much did that cost? He looked at the table. $16,000 for the ski and trailer. And your monthly payment? $423, he mumbled. Which you cannot afford, I concluded. Have you made the first payment yet? More silence. So not only are you unable to contribute to the mortgage, but you have taken on additional debt that you also cannot pay, I summarized. And I am supposed to keep enabling this behavior because family helps family. What do you want from us? Matthew Dad asked, his voice breaking. Do you want us to beg to lose our home? To admit we have taken you for granted? Yes, we have. We are admitting it now. I want accountability, I said firmly. I want recognition that this dynamic is unhealthy for all of us. I want Kyle to take responsibility for himself. And yes, I want acknowledgement of how deeply you hurt me, not just by missing the dinner, but by years of treating my accomplishments as less important than Kyle's impulsive decisions. We do recognize that, Mom said, reaching across the table toward my hand. I did not reciprocate the gesture, and we are truly sorry. We got our priorities confused. But please, Matthew, do not punish us by taking away our home. I am not punishing you, I corrected her. I am establishing boundaries. There is a difference. Kyle finally looked me in the eye. So that is it. You are just cutting us off completely. Some brother you are. That is rich coming from you, I replied evenly. When have you ever acted like a brother to me? When have you ever shown gratitude for the support I have provided? When have you ever celebrated my successes the way I have been expected to celebrate yours? He had no answer. For what it is worth, I continued, I do not want you to lose the house, but I am not resuming the payments. You need to figure this out yourselves. Sell something, take out a loan, downsize, whatever it takes. I will help in an emergency, but your monthly obligations are your responsibility now. We cannot come up with that much money by next week, Dad said desperately. The jet ski, I suggested again. Sell it. Kyle's face contorted. I just bought it, and I would lose money selling it now. Then keep making excuses while your parents lose their house, I replied coldly. That seems to be your specialty. I stood up, indicating the conversation was ending. I have another appointment. Call me when you have a realistic plan that does not involve me resuming payments indefinitely. Matthew, wait, Mom grabbed my wrist. This is not who you are. You have always been the responsible one, the one we could count on. That is exactly the problem, I said, gently removing her hand. I was responsible for all of us, while Kyle was responsible for none of us, not even himself. That ends now. As I walked away, my phone rang. Marcus Taylor, my friend, since elementary school. I answered as I pushed through the cafe door. Hey, Matt, he said. Just checking in. Your mom called me yesterday asking if I knew what was going on with you. She said you abandoned the family. I laughed without humor. Of course, that is how she framed it. Did she mention they skipped my promotion dinner to celebrate Kyle buying a jet ski? Or that I have been paying their mortgage for 3 years? Wait, what? Marcus sounded genuinely shocked. No, she definitely left those parts out. She made it sound like you had some kind of breakdown. Classic, I sighed. They are trying to control the narrative. Want me to set the record straight if anyone else asks, Marcus offered. I would appreciate that, I said. The truth is, I finally stood up for myself after years of being taken for granted. After hanging up, I opened my email and began composing a message to my extended family. I attached documentation of every payment I had made, screenshots of the text exchange from the night of my dinner, and Jessica's social media post about Kyle's success story. The subject line read simply, "Why I stopped paying my parents' mortgage." I hesitated before hitting send, wondering if this was petty. But no, this was not about revenge. This was about truth, about refusing to be villainized for establishing healthy boundaries. I pressed send and continued walking, feeling lighter with each step. 6 months passed like a dream, the kind where you finally get what you have always wanted but never believed was possible. My promotion came with not just increased salary but respect and recognition I had never experienced before. Projects I led succeeded brilliantly. My investment portfolio flourished without the constant drain of family financial emergencies. More importantly, I rediscovered parts of myself that had been buried under years of obligation. I joined a rock-climbing gym, something I had wanted to try since college but never found the time for. I took cooking classes on Wednesday evenings. I dated without calculating how each dinner might have instead contributed to my parents' mortgage. The situation with my family evolved in ways both expected and surprising. 2 weeks after our coffee shop confrontation, they lost the house. Not to foreclosure, they managed to sell it quickly, though, at below market value given their urgency. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a modest complex closer to Dad's work. Kyle, faced with actual consequences for perhaps the first time in his adult life, sold the jet ski at a significant loss. He found full-time work at a warehouse and began paying rent to our parents, another first. I heard through Aunt Cynthia that he had started community college evening classes studying business administration. The first month was the hardest. Mom called daily, alternating between tearful pleas and cold silence. Dad texted weekly updates that read like hostage notes, clearly meant to induce guilt about their reduced circumstances. Extended family members took sides, some cutting contact with me entirely. Through it all, I maintained my boundaries. I sent a birthday card to Mom with a modest gift certificate. I texted Dad occasionally about neutral topics like sports or weather. I responded to emergencies, sending flowers when Aunt Cynthia had surgery, contributing to a cousin's medical GoFundMe. But the bottomless financial support had ended. Dr. Amelia Barnes, my therapist of 4 months, helped me navigate the complicated emotions that surfaced once the initial relief faded. Guilt is normal, she told me during one session. You were conditioned for years to believe their financial well-being was your responsibility. Breaking that pattern feels like betrayal, even though it is actually healthy. Sometimes I worry. I overreacted, I admitted. The dinner was just one night. Was it really just about the dinner, she asked pointedly. It was not, of course. The dinner was merely the final straw, the undeniable proof of a pattern I had long suspected, but never confronted. In the 3rd month, something shifted. The desperate calls stopped. The guilt-inducing texts became less frequent. Mom sent an email that, while not a full apology, acknowledged they had perhaps relied too heavily on my support over the years. By month 4, we had established a new normal. Sunday phone calls with clear boundaries, no requests for money, no comparison to Kyle's latest achievement, no guilt trips about their apartment. Dad mentioned they were building an emergency fund for the first time in decades. Mom had taken on additional hours at the school to contribute more to their budget. In month 5, they asked if I would join them for dinner, their treat at a restaurant they could actually afford. I accepted with cautious optimism. The dinner was awkward, but not hostile. Kyle did not attend working overtime. Dad explained a concept so foreign to my brother that I almost laughed. Mom looked older, but somehow more present, less distracted by constant financial worry. Dad asked thoughtful questions about my work and actually listened to the answers. As they drove me back to my car afterward, Mom turned in her seat to face me. We miss you, Matthew. The family does not feel right without you. I miss certain things too, I admitted. But I do not miss how I felt when I was bankrolling everyone while being treated as an afterthought. She nodded slowly. I understand that now. We took advantage of your generosity for so long it became normal. We did not see how unfair it was. Or how much it hurt, I added quietly. Or that she agreed, eyes downcast. I am truly sorry, Matthew. Not just for missing your dinner, but for years of making you feel less important than your brother. It was the most genuine apology she had offered, and something inside me softened slightly. Not enough to resume the old patterns, but enough to consider a new kind of relationship, one built on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. The 6-month mark brought an unexpected test. Dad called on a Tuesday evening, his voice tight with worry. Mom needs gallbladder surgery. Insurance covers most of it, but our deductible is $5,000. We have about half saved. The old Matthew would have immediately offered to pay the entire amount. The new Matthew asked questions. What are your options? Have you looked into payment plans? Yes, Dad replied. The hospital offers one, but they require the deductible up front before scheduling surgery. I considered my response carefully. I can help with half. I said finally. 2,500. You cover the rest from your emergency fund. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. The old dynamic would have involved them asking for the full amount, me giving it, and them expressing effusive temporary gratitude before returning to the status quo. That is more than fair, Dad said eventually. Thank you, son. I transferred the money that night with clear communication that this was a one-time medical emergency contribution, not a return to previous patterns. They respected that boundary, sending a simple thank you text when Mom's surgery was successfully completed. Thanksgiving arrived, the first major holiday since the rift. Aunt Cynthia hosted, creating neutral territory for the family reunion. Kyle arrived with a new girlfriend and surprisingly a decent bottle of wine he had purchased himself. Mom hugged me without the usual guilt-inducing whisper about how long it had been since my last visit. Dad engaged me in conversation about my recent rock climbing trip, rather than immediately asking for computer help. After dinner, Kyle approached me as I helped clear the table. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "I never really apologized for the whole jet ski thing." I raised an eyebrow. "The jet ski thing? You know what I mean," he muttered. "Missing your dinner. Taking advantage. All of it." "Are you actually apologizing now?" I asked. He nodded, looking uncomfortable but sincere. "Yeah, I am. I was a selfish jerk for a long time. It took losing the house for me to realize how much damage I was doing." "Apology accepted," I said simply. "How is school going?" "Hard," he admitted, "but good. I actually understand the value of education now that I am paying for it myself." As we rejoined the family, I caught Mom watching us with tears in her eyes. Not manipulative tears designed to make me feel guilty, but genuine emotion at seeing her sons speaking as equals for perhaps the first time in our adult lives. Later that evening, as I prepared to leave, she pulled me aside. "We are proud of you, Matthew, not just for your job or success, but for having the courage to set boundaries when we could not see how much we were hurting you." "Thank you," I said, meaning it. "That means a lot." "Will you come for Christmas?" she asked, then quickly added, "No pressure, just a simple family dinner. Kyle is making his famous lasagna." I smiled at the thought of Kyle cooking another new development. I would like that. Driving home that night, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The pain of that lonely promotion dinner had transformed into something valuable, the catalyst for change that had ultimately benefited everyone. My parents were learning financial responsibility in their 50s. Kyle was finally growing up, and I was discovering who Matthew Wilson could be when not defined by family obligation. The following week, I received news of another promotion, Executive Vice President, effective January 1st. That evening, I made dinner reservations for 6 at the Capitol Grill, the scene of my solitary celebration months earlier. This time, I invited the people who had supported me through the difficult transition: David from work, Marcus, my childhood friend Aunt Cynthia, and yes, Mom and Dad. All 6 of us raised our glasses as David offered a toast to Matthew, not just for his professional success, but for showing us all that self-respect is the foundation of every healthy relationship. As we clinked glasses, I realized the most valuable lesson of this painful journey. True family, whether related by blood or by choice, celebrates your successes as enthusiastically as their own. They show up when it matters. They recognize your worth without requiring sacrifice. I had lost the fantasy of an idealized family, but gained something more precious: authentic relationships built on mutual respect rather than obligation. The price had been high, but the peace it brought was worth every penny. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took you for granted? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more authentic stories about family dynamics and personal growth. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to stop enabling unhealthy patterns. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength on your own journey toward healthier relationships.